Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of the Sofa Series Artist Spotlight. Yeah. Today with us is the inimitable, the unbelievable, the gloriously wonderful Batya MacAdam Somer. She's a violinist, a singer, a multi-talented, amazing human, and I love her very much. So thank you so much for being with us,
Oh,
Batya!
Leslie, thank you for having me. I love you
Great.
too. I do.
Oh, cool. So, Ms. MacAdam Somer, tell me, where were you on the night of? Just kidding. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from, and how did you migrate your way through the United States and wind up in San Diego?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Pretty cool city for music. Yeah, tons of music. I have two older sisters and a little brother, and we were all Suzuki kids, hardcore Suzuki kids with a hardcore Suzuki mom. Um, so it was all about Suzuki workshops and group class, and violin was my life from a pretty young age. Um, and I was pretty successful as a kid. And then early on, though, around age 12 or so, I started getting pretty intense performance anxiety. And that has been a part of my story, even though I love to perform. So I went off to New York City to do my undergrad at the Manhattan School of Music.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had a really good time there. Met a lot of great people, and I started. I had always done some like contemporary music stuff in Houston. It was just sort of part of what I was involved in. I was fortunate that way. But then I really started to get involved with that in New York. And again, there was a piece of like, wow, the kind of traditional standard discourse of classical music, like I don't feel super comfortable with. How can I feel more comfortable, or like where what just really wanting to explore that. So that kind of took me into the new music world. And then me and my boyfriend at the time were finishing our undergrads, and we were like, what are we going to do next? Let's go to California. um, we had heard about UCSD from composers, and they said, oh, you have this crazy program. And we're like, cool. So we ended up in San Diego and spent a long time in graduate school, which
It's a
was,
long time.
yeah, how long was it? I guess 7 years. 7 years, which actually, now that I say that, I'm like, is that a long time?
I don't know. I guess now that we're older women,
Right.
and we know so many more things now, maybe 7 years doesn't seem like such a long time.
Right, like we could just blink and it
But
happen. Yeah.
yeah, but like that's a long time to be in school, I think.
It's,
We'll talk a little bit more about your discomfort with like the kind of traditional standard repertoire and yeah.
yeah, well, thank you for letting me talk about it, first of all, because I really feel like this stuff is not talked about enough. I'm trying to figure out how to talk about it.
Hmm.
So I love standard repertoire. I think it is incredible stuff. I think it is, I love working on it and I love performing it. I feel like the culture within which it is typically taught and presented kind of wipes out any real agency that individual musicians have to develop like a real relationship with the music and kind of cultivate a sense of like self-expression through Bach, or like what Bach means to you, what Brahms means to you. I I feel as if a lot of current classical music culture is sort of like, it's, yes, we appreciate how incredible musicians are and we appreciate how incredible this music is. And I feel like there's this giant gap between those two concepts of like, why is this meaningful to the person playing it? Why is it meaningful to the audience? Besides, like, oh, it's really amazing that that person can memorize that concerto and get up on a stage. It's like, yes, that's amazing, but what's also amazing is like what said composer was like writing and why somebody would spend the time to do that. And yeah, so I feel like that process of like integrating yourself with a score or a concept of a score, whatever the score is, it just gets shoved. It's sort of like learn it as fast as possible. If you can't learn it quickly enough, there's something wrong with you. If you're scared, like don't talk about it, or like, pop some pills.
Yeah.
Pop some pills, and don't bring your nerves around. Like don't tell other people you're playing with you're nervous, because that's like giving them a disease or something. And like just like repress, basically.
Which is so like I've talked about this with all of the musicians so far, because I think we all go through it, and you're right, we don't talk about it as much as I think we should. But I feel I felt as a kid, you're a kid, when you're given all of these works. Even in college, we're still kids. 18 to 21 is a child.
Very big child.
A big kid, but a kid. And I didn't get it, but I had, I wanted to I wanted to know everything. I wanted to make all of my teachers happy, and I didn't feel like I was quite doing it right, but I couldn't talk about it with anybody. And so for me, my defense mechanism was to divert to arrogance. So then I was the asshole in undergrad who was just like, oh, guys, Marriage of Figaro is like the greatest opera ever, and if you don't get it, then like I was that shithead.
Not a bad tactic, though.
That's how I could survive, man. But I felt like the executor of a will, I wanted to like get all of the events to happen at the right time, and if I didn't sound like, I don't know, Federico von Stade, then I was doing it wrong. And why don't I sound like her at 19? And my voice is bad, and therefore I'm bad, and my body sucks, and like it's just this whole like this whole awful head game that I was playing with myself. That it just sucks. And so you were talking about like you and I have talked about this a lot, but talk about the beta blockers.
Yeah, let's talk about beta blockers.
Let's do it.
I was first given beta blockers when I was 15 years old at a music festival. And it was like a magic drug. I mean,
Wait, was it given to you by a teacher or by like another kid who was just like, hey, try these out?
Hey, No, it was the teachers of the festival that were basically like, why don't you try taking this pill? And I was just like, okay. And
oh my God.
Yeah, and it was basically like, try taking one today, like by yourself, like there was a little bit of like, not just like, okay, we're going to shove this down your throat.
Yeah.
On stage. But I do remember it was really intense because I was playing Sibelius Concerto, 15 years old, and I had gone and I played it at like Dartmouth College because, we would like get traveled out to go, we were in Vermont. So I'd done that, and I was nervous, and I was upset and ashamed, and I felt so bad afterwards, and that's when the pill was introduced to me. And then 2 days later, I performed Sibelius again at another concert. And this time I took a beta blocker for the first time in my life. And I remember walking up on the stage and feeling like I was high. Like I literally felt like I was just like, woo, I'm walking through this audience and people are looking at me. This is weird, but it did. I mean, it was a really great performance, and I was really relaxed. Yeah. So that was the beginning of my relationship with Betablockers, and I still use them. I
You
do.
do.
I do. Um, do I like that? Not really. I wish I didn't feel like I needed them.
Yeah.
But they help me. They
Well,
do.
so what is it for you with this, with the performance anxiety? Because I think that, like, I do agree. I think it is more common than people let on in the classical music world. We're sort of like, I don't know, it's this weird perverse thing where we train all of these children to be these machines, you know? And we
Yeah.
just like go, 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 do all of your rudiments and play through, you know, just like it's just constantly moving forward. And if you're not moving forward, then that's it. Someone else is going to, there's always a line of musicians behind you waiting to take your place, you know?
Yes. Yes. You do feel, yeah, replaceable. And yeah, which is like, I mean, we'll kind of get back there at some point. But okay, for me, I feel like I am shot through with adrenaline kind of 24/7. Like I
Yeah.
cannot handle caffeine. Sleep, as you know, has been a thing for me. I am sleeping pretty well, and I have been for like a solid year or more. So that's
Yay.
awesome. And I have played around a lot with like, I used to like back when I was in my early 20s and I was really, really struggling, kind of the darkest days. I would take like 120 milligrams of beta blockers. I mean, I would like tranquilize myself.
You're a tiny person, Batya.
And it was like deadening everything.
Wow.
These days, I take 5 to 10 milligrams,
Okay.
and so that's like that progress has been huge for me, honestly. And the fact that like I do play and sometimes perform without them is like a huge feat.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's for me, and now that I have all of this time alone,
Mhm.
um, I think there's just a really strong current of energy that I'm carrying, and I feel like it's positive, and I'm working on how to channel that into something that I feel like I can control, because I feel very out of control with
Mhm.
the nerves, and it's definitely social anxiety. I
Yeah.
noticed that these nerves don't just happen with the violin; they happen often around people. So it's like the people factor is really the thing.
Well, it's not just, I mean, I don't know. I don't, it's more than just nerves. It's this, like, there's this shame sort of associated with it too, right? Like it's still this, like, this little thing. It's like, oh God, I didn't do that right. My 16th note sounded more like a 32nd note. God, it's just like
Right,
every little thing
right,
feels so
right.
shameful.
Yes, right. Like yeah, like you're some kind of heretical presence to something that is some overlord
But
of
it's bigger than us,
that's bigger
right?
than us, right?
Yeah. Like, oh.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're struggling with that feeling of like I have to get it perfect, and I have to kind of sit on this tiny little ledge and not fall off. It's like there's not a whole lot of room for your heart, and I feel like I I am fighting for that space, fighting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you find that kind of freedom or that kind of space in other musics? Like, do you find it, for example, in Baby Bushka, the all-female Kate Bush band, tribute band that is extraordinary? Do you find freedom there where it seems more playful?
Absolutely, absolutely. I definitely again, like the energy is there, the excitement, which makes me a little shaky, is there, but I don't feel like that component is going to break the power that is Baby Bushka. And so it's like, I think also just the sense that the reason people are there to like celebrate this music and to just have a really good time, whereas unfortunately, because classical music has this, you know, professionalized, codified history, which isn't, you know, there's good and bad things about that, but it's like you do sometimes walk on a stage feeling like, I don't know, feeling like you're there to like fulfill something, and it's like if you color out of the lines, you're
shunned.
Yeah,
Shunned.
you're like, you're gross.
You're gross.
So yes, I do find that, and I also find it within classical music performances where I feel like I have the time to work through this stuff. So one project that I feel very strongly about that is with Bonnie Lander. Bonnie and I have been working on Kurtag's Kafka fragments for years on and off. And that's crazy hard classical music, you know? And it's so brutally, like, you're like, again, yeah, like standing on this high wire trying to like play pianissimo and so vulnerable. And it's, you know, so that's all of the stakes are there. But because Bonnie and I, you know, are both into like, okay, we're gonna like spend 2 weeks together, like working the shit out of this, and Bonnie's got my back, and so if I show up to rehearsal like a little shaky or whatever, it's like there's no fear in exposing that, and through the work we do together, it's like I find ways to channel the energy. And then when we perform it multiple times, it's like as you get to perform things multiple times, the stuff does start to feel more comfortable, and all of a sudden you are kind of flowing, and it doesn't, your mind isn't going into that like, holy shit, I'm playing Kurtag. You're just like, I'm just making this music.
Do you find that you don't often get to play things enough? That you just prepare them to perform them and then you leave them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am I am at the point, honestly, where I am just done with freelancing. I'm done. I am like committing myself to my artistic practice here right now in this time. And I feel like I have to, again, fight so hard to do that when I am asked to prepare concerts, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and just tons of running around, recording sessions, gigs, weddings, whatever it is, that I feel like don't support me, don't feed me in that way, and kind of like I keep having these really nervy, unhappy experiences in those realms, whereas on the other side with like, say, you know, the beautiful Project Blank event, that just happened. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what it was called.
Working title,
thank you. Title. Yeah, I got to perform 2 different pieces several times. It was fascinating. The space that we were performing in was unique in that, you know, it was this church with all these nooks and crannies, and even just knowing that while I was playing, there was an installation, chiming bells, and there was events happening outside, like just kind of knowing that was like part of what I was doing, it made it so much easier for me to let go and just so
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad. I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Oh yeah. And then it's like, okay, there's a reason I do this. There's a reason. I'm not insane. I'm not crazy for continuing to be a violinist when I have performance anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what are the? Let's talk about that Carolyn Chen piece. So you're exploring singing and playing at the same time, and as like as a singer, like it feels to me like you're invading your space with this appendage instrument.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the violin just feels like that. Anyway, awful.
But it's this beautiful thing because you're like singing to the violin and into the violin and through the
Yeah,
violin as you're playing it. So like the violin and your body are both these resonant, vibrating things, and that the sounds are just they mix in a way that that just doesn't happen if the singer and the violinist are different people. That you are this one. You are the singing violinist. It's so beautiful. So let's talk about this piece by the most wonderful composer Carolyn Chen, whose worldview is one that I like. If there was anybody I would like to see like the world through their eyes, it's her. I just
absolutely.
she has just such an amazing and insightful, like boundlessly curious point of view that I like. I love her. We all love her.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the work Some Dragons. So how
Yeah.
did that begin? Where did you get the text? And when did you decide to really take the leap and just like, no, I want to sing and play?
Okay, well, I'll talk about Some Dragons, and I'll go back to singing and playing. But
Yeah.
Some Dragons, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to commission some music a couple years ago. Long story there, won't go into it, but basically, but I had this opportunity, and I asked Carolyn if she would write me a piece for my voice instrument, and super excited to do that. Carolyn, is our colleague and friend from UCSC, and I had collaborated with her, but we'd never had a specific collaboration. It was I performed in group pieces or maybe just even experiments that she was like checking out. But I love the quality of Carolyn's approach. There is something that just feels like just in the way she writes and in the subject matter she chooses to work with, you feel like you're being invited to explore and play, and I love that. And there's a casual kind of like um, curiosity that is just there in
Mm-hmm.
her and in her work. And so I was very excited to ask her to write me a piece. And then she wrote an amazing piece. Wow. Like, I actually, as of just a few days ago, I finally got through the seventh movement, the last movement. And it's this incredible setting. It's about Lynn Cox, who is a long distance swimmer racer, and she has done all these incredible feats, including swimming across the Bering Strait and
Mm-hmm.
during the Cold War to basically make like a protest against the Cold War,
Yeah.
and really like caught the attention of both the American and Russian governments. Um, but this piece is just, um, it's called Face Water, and it's 8 pages long. And it's like blowing my mind, and I'm just like, what? Like, I'm so fortunate that I get to work on this. Like, how lucky am I? Wow. So it is 7 movements long, which I was not expecting. I had sort of said like, I can't give you a lot of money, but if you can, like 10 or 15 minutes maybe, and this is, I don't know how long the whole thing is, but it's probably like 40 minutes or something like that. And 7 movements, text basically by all women, which is really lovely. We had talked about just these general um, themes like I was embarking on a 3-month journey across the country and over to Europe and the United Kingdom. And so there was this kind of emphasis on adventure and exploration and discovery and like self-discovery and also just female perspectives. Like, so we have discussed a few of the texts. The first text is by a woman who I know, a poet that I know named Estella Lauder. I teach her daughter. I love them. They're beautiful people. And Estella is a former poet laureate of Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, and her poems are gorgeous. So I'd said to Carolyn, I'd really like to use a text of hers, and Carolyn found a text that she connected with by Estella. So that's the first movement, and
Is that the Maud's Drink the Tears?
no, this is Two Dragons. So the very first movement, yeah, where she's describing a Chinese street artist cutting two dragons, and her granddaughters, her daughter Kristen's daughters are they're twins, and they're born in the year of the dragon. So there's this kind of connection, personal connection there. But of course, the poem just, yeah, I don't know. I think this is actually written on my website. So, but it's like I love pieces that combine these really personal perspectives with a larger kind of collective reach. Right? Kind of saying like, yeah, this is about something, about a person and her family or whatever, but it's also about all these ideas, and obviously that's kind of just woven into every aspect of it. But that gets me really excited. So Moths Drink the Tears of Sleeping Birds, that is it's actually from a scientific text about this phenomenon, which is so crazy. You know, these these moths that usually feed on these large mammals, but can't do that in Madagascar where there are no large mammals, so they drink the tears of birds. But birds, they can only do this when the birds are sleeping. And so Rebecca Solonit, have you read anything by her? Oh man, well, she's a beautiful, beautiful writer. She's written memoirs, and she's written a lot of interesting historical books. She wrote, the book that I'm mentioning is called, I think it's called The Faraway Nearby. And it's a memoir, but of course it gets also very philosophical. And at the bottom of the book, so there's a book, but then at the bottom of the book is like its own little essay, which gets written out on the bottom of each page. And so like you thumb through every single page to read this essay she writes about moths drinking the tears.
Wow.
Yeah, gorgeous. So the Rebecca Solnit, The Faraway Nearby, and we had connected on that text, and so we used that. After that, just I think because of the fact that our lives are separate, and she's in LA and I'm in San Diego, and I just kind of blinked, and she had chosen all these other texts. So all the other texts Carolyn just found, and they're all incredible. Let's see, the next is, I'm blanking on the name, but she discovered the structure of DNA, and then the next movement, which I have a video on your series here, is a text by Amelia Earhart. And then the next movement, which I actually wanted to ask you if you would be open to me submitting another video.
Yes.
Okay.
Easy.
Yeah,
Duh.
my dad was like, it's great, but it's really short. I'm like, all right, fine. But the next movement is about this Chinese pirate, this female pirate. And it's crazy.
She's a badass. She amassed the biggest army ever. Ever.
Yeah. 80,000 pirates, it says in the text. Yeah.
That's so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that movement, and I'm getting to the point where I can play through that movement under tempo, so that's like, woo.
Yeah, Carolyn is so like she's she's a very, for those who don't know her, she's a very soft spoken person, um, but she like she writes some very virtuosic music
Yes,
sometimes.
yes. And she'll let you know, like I know
I
the
think this
first
is kind of
time.
hard.
Yeah, and the first and she won't, there's never any apologizing.
No.
It's always very soft spoken, but she's just like, which, it's not that I want her to apologize, but like there's never any sense of like, oh gosh, is that too much? It's just like, yeah, if you can get it faster, I'm like, okay,
Okay.
maybe here, yeah. But I do think there's this insistence. It's like, no, you're gonna work on this.
You're gonna do it.
You're gonna spend some time with this.
But she also like she just man, she's got this really beautiful way of really understanding each of us as people and
Right.
as musicians, and it's not that like it's not that she just wants to write things for this hard that are difficult just for the sake of them being difficult. It's that
Right.
she knows what each of us can do, and that I
Right.
think she knows our own sort of like discomfort with just like churning out, really hard pieces in 2 weeks and then you perform it, right? And so it's like there's this added like level of devotion to you as a player, and like in what
Yes.
you can do, and in the right context it can be totally worth it. It can be worth
Right.
all of the hours to learn every note on that page. Whereas sometimes I don't feel that payoff in like really famous pieces. I'm just like, that was like a solid, I don't know how many hours of my life to prepare for this like 4 minute thing. Was that worth it?
Right.
But
Right.
with Carolyn's music, it like always is. It always is totally worth it.
Wow.
You know?
I completely agree, and it really just highlights, yeah, how meaningful it is when you get to work with your friends and your colleagues, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So then let's go on the Wayback Machine. So when did you start doing the singing and playing?
Yeah, I started singing and playing at UCSD.
Hmm.
I gotta say, UCSD, it's a funny place, but man, was it the right place for me, I think.
Yeah.
It really, and just in terms of the community, the people I met there and the opportunities I had, and the fact that I kind of was left to my own devices was exactly what I wanted, and I feel like what I needed. And
Hmm.
so, I was standing around in that small PA office in a music school, and Bob Pierzak mentioned that he had a piece for a singing violinist. My ears just pricked up, and I was like, I want to do that. That sounds cool. I've got a recital coming up. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
put it on the recital. And the stuff he showed me, I thought was really great. And that was really it. And singing, I always felt like the violin I was singing with it. I really have always felt that way. And that has carried me, I think, through the like, gosh, my body doesn't seem to do this naturally the way I would like it to. But I do love that the quality of it has this very human component to it.
Hmm.
And then, you know, there is a singing and playing tradition in terms of like folk singers.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of side of violin, the fiddling part of violin, which is really freeing for me also. So I
Yeah.
do love those qualities. But yeah, so that was my first experience. I guess that was in 2010 or 11. So
That was so long ago.
I know.
Whoa.
And so I did that and had a great experience with that piece. Really beautiful. That is called Four Songs, I believe, and it's audio on my website. And then I worked with Nick Deo, our dear buddy Nick
Wow.
Deo. Yeah.
Yeah.
We wrote a
Yeah.
piece together where I provided the text and he wrote the music. And there's a video on my website of that.
That is so very personal, Batya.
Yes,
Why
it is.
would you do that?
It's
What's
just what
wrong
I
with
do.
you?
It was my dissertation recital,
Yeah.
and I think another friend, Berglind, who I know both of them are being presented on this series.
How could we not?
Yeah,
They're geniuses.
they are. They are. They're fantastic. Um, they had collaborated on a piece where Berglind was playing flute, but also speaking. And I think the piece was based on these dreams she'd had. And I was really inspired by that. I was like, huh, I loved the personal quality of like kind of getting a look at, Berglind's amazing brain. And then also just this beautiful experience of what the piece was. And
Yeah.
I thought, I wonder if I could do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the piece is totally wacky and weird, which is what I am. So there you go. But I love it. It's an amazing piece.
Yeah.
You know?
It's called
Yeah.
do you do the German first or the English first? Lead, lied, or lied, lead?
It's so funny. I call it lead.
Lead, lead?
And that's just how I hear it in my head. I call it lead. I don't know. I just like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, just to explain. So Lied in German is Lied, which is German for song, or Lieder is the German for song. But in English, if we look at that word and it's pronounced like lied, like you lied.
hi,
You
girl.
liar.
Yeah.
So it's a good little play on words, but I didn't. You do say it like lead, lead.
I don't, it's funny. It's like that's just the way I hear it in my head. And I guess if I were to say Nick Deo's piece, lead, like I would just say it that way. But the meaning is definitely like very prismatic. Is that a word?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So it's like, it could be lied, it could be lead, it could be lied, it could be lead. And I think the irony there, of course, is that I was being very, very honest in the text that I had written. I mean, in fact, one of the things I did was I wrote a bio where I just wrote whatever came out, like random details. I was like, stuff like I was kind of porky when I was 14 and my mom made me go to jazzercise with my sister.
Oh,
And
God.
yeah, and like,
Your
um,
mom.
yeah, love you, mom.
Love you, mom.
I'll carry that for the rest of my life. But then, the way it's presented, of course, is like he takes just little fragments, and the piece is in, I think, like 13 little fragments. Some of them are interludes, but the others are with voice, with text, and it's kind of chopped up and mixed around. So I feel like there is this element of like the truth getting kind of like filtered and sort of like reinterpreted, misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're very specific about saying on your website that it is like for the untrained voice. Now, I, as a singer, would like to say to you,
Yeah.
you have a glorious voice. It is truly, truly very, very wonderful and beautiful. And do you ever feel, I don't know, do you ever feel that the same sorts of like anxieties as you feel with your violin? Do you ever feel that for your singing sound?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've had that experience with Baby Bushka, and of course, so in Baby Bushka, every member of the band gets up and sings a solo. And that's one
Ooh.
of the most exciting things about our show is that, like, at some point, our drummer, Leah, gets up and sings, and everyone's like, oh my God, so it's really exciting. Because that happens at the very end and it's like, like literally all of them are going to sing.
Yeah.
So I sing a song called Houdini, which happens to be a very, I think, hard song to sing, and it's vulnerable. It's not, big and soaring. I can't like let it rip, and I also, I just, I don't. It's understanding how to control a voice is something I am learning about, kind of slowly, but I'm learning about it. But like the first few times we rehearsed that song, it was just like the experience of getting nervous with violin. I was like, oh, like, how do I even sound like anything?
And like the real shitty thing, not that nerves in playing other instruments is less difficult, but nerves in playing singing is especially a sucker punch, because the first thing that betrays you when you're nervous is your voice, you know? Like your voice gives you away, your breath falls apart, and it's like the thing that you need, and it just goes, "Pfft, not today, not today, that's it, it's gone." Yeah, it sucks.
Well, turn it around. I mean, what has your experience been with?
No,
No, no?
okay. Well, no, it's that. It's that. It's like, this the shame of cracking a note, the shame of like, good Lord, God forbid you have to take a breath in the middle of a phrase that in every time you had practiced it you didn't need to, but now suddenly I'm out of air. Okay, this is fun. And you have to like put that fire out, and then it starts you in the shame spiral. Like, oh great, this is going horribly. The whole rest of this piece is ruined. But it's like, I don't know, I guess I kind of figured that like, the nerves are always going to be there. I don't know that I have ever performed in solo context and not been nervous, no matter how prepared I am, and no matter how, like, I don't know, easy or difficult the piece is. It doesn't matter. I'm still equally nervous. Like, and it's worst. It's the worst when it's like, it's. I'm a section leader at a church, and every now and then I have to get up and sing a solo, and that for me is like the most nerve-wracking thing. And it's usually a simple tune. It's nothing really, really complex, and it's just like, okay, here we go. It's this sort of no pressure situation, and then
Right.
it's just, yeah.
The no pressure situation where you're not given the time to prepare because or you're not encouraged because it's a gig, and you've got other stuff going on, and I feel a weird shame when I like sit down with like, quite frankly, dumb Christmas gig music that I feel like I have to practice just so I don't feel like a total nervous wreck.
Yeah.
Okay, but that is,
Easy.
easy. Yeah.
It's just not. It's just not. It's so not. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So I started to kind of lean into the nervousness and start to like forgive myself for needing to breathe, and for me, my lower register completely gets like, because it's the most associated with our speaking voice, and so it's like, that's usually what goes out, and the worst irony of it all is that I'm an alto. So I just sort of lean into it. I understand that my voice is probably going to break. I understand that I'm going to need to breathe when I normally never would have. I understand that it's going to be a high pressure situation. And if I can get a chance, I'll do like, some sort of like, I'll like pump it up, I'll be like an athlete and be like, okay, ooh, yeah. Right, like, yeah, like I get very like ape like, and it becomes very animalistic where I have to like, psych myself into it. Otherwise, it's just the shame of it all. It's too much.
Oh, yeah.
It's too much. And then after the come down, it's like, why do I do that? Why do I do
Yeah.
this? Why am I a
Yeah.
singer? I could
Yeah.
have done so many other things. Why do I do this?
You know, I could work privately and present my work without people staring at me doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, what would that feel like?
What is that?
That, yeah, yeah.
Not great. That might be great.
I know, I know. Oh, God. Yeah.
Ugh. 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 Okay,
But
so you're focusing on your craft, right? And like trying to find what is the sort of what would be the ideal situation for you to perform moving forward.
yeah, I mean, I love collaborations. I love the chance to get to work with my friends, with um, fellow, beautiful, interesting musicians, artists that always provide some kind of way through the nerves, is I guess the way I should put it.
Hmm.
So that's what I want to continue to pursue. Is,
Yeah.
that kind of meaningful work. I feel like I would love to work harder to present my work at festivals, at events around the country.
That's a job.
It's a job. Yeah.
Finding all the festivals, the application process, who do I gotta know to get in, and
Right. It is a job, and it's yeah, again, it's like you don't feel like I have not felt in my sort of most current life of just like hustling, hustling. That I have the energy to deal with that.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, the way I've dealt with that is I've basically carved out like 3 or 4 months in the year where I go and travel and like collaborate with people and put on small concerts and do the work that I love to do, and I make no money doing it.
Nope.
And then I have to come back and I'm like,
Gotta make some money.
money somehow.
It's expensive here.
Yeah.
How do I do this?
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, I have thought about relocating to a less expensive city. I don't know. And of course now everything is just like back burner, or we're just waiting. Yeah.
We're just waiting. We're waiting it out.
Waiting it out, yeah.
Waiting it out.
Waiting it out. And I do feel like there is an opportunity there for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, I mean, I'm trying my best to make some lemonade here, It's like we're all, not to like throw some corporate speak down your throat, but like we're all in this together,
Totally. That's not corporate speak.
I mean, it's being used against me by corporate America, though, and I resent them for it. But yeah, I don't know. I think that looking at this as an opportunity to kind of understand what is really important, and I think hopefully audiences and musicians alike that we are all considering these questions about like, well, why do we perform? Why do we perform the musics that we perform? Why are some people included and some people excluded? What is valuable in any of this? And I think everybody is, audiences and performers are all considering these things. So yeah. I hope that it'll be all better at some point.
I hope that we learn something from this experience. I would love for life to be a little less hectic.
Yeah.
That would help. That helps me a lot.
Yeah.
To not feel like you just have to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Batya, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, Leslie,
I love you.
I love
So
you
great.
too. And it's an incredible opportunity to be honest and talk. It's a beautiful person and beautiful audience, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Just before we sign off, I need to draw everyone's attention to the nice jugs
Oh,
postcard that you have behind you.
that was yes, as part of the Burns Jug Band the annual Jug Band Jubilee, and
Which is a thing, people. That is a thing.
it's a thing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And there was a printing press that you could print
Awesome.
yourself.
Awesome. Well, on that.
On that note.
Ta-ta. Thanks for chatting. Bye-bye.